This is introduction to myself. I go by Kai online. I'm currently using they them pronouns. I'm coming to you in PNG tuber format. As for what I do, I make stuff. Sometimes it's art. Sometimes I stream, but not so often anymore right now. And I make zines in my free time. I'm kind of like a hobbyist, not like an expert or anything. I mostly just collect books and do longboarding when it's not snowing outside. Unfortunately, it's kind of like oscillating between wet and snowing here, so yeah, not a whole lot of longboarding. But here's a picture of my longboard. It's actually pretty good to ride around outside when it's nice out, and it has these little puppet charms of these two characters from this anime I like called Skate the Infinity. They're gonna appear here and there in the presentation. So yeah. So if you're interested, this is my panel. It's on zines. There's like a couple reasons that I decided to do this panel. Mostly because zines are cool, and I'd like for more people to try making them. They like people tend to see a lot of these polished books, and they don't see themselves making such things. But zines are actually pretty good. They're for beginners. They're for everybody. And in like my first encounter recently. Like I've made booklets before, but I just recently came encountered with like basically fandom zines. I feel like a lot of people get the impression that they're supposed to be like highly polished and commercial creations with like a high barrier to entry, when they've historically been creations for the marginalized people, for other people in their community. And I guess also my last reason is that I've seen people post about being like, we're gonna go indie, we're gonna make zines, but I never see anything come out of it. Or maybe they're making their zines and sharing them somewhere that I can't see, but please come talk to me about zines. I'm interested in them. And here's a picture of some punk zines and early day pictures that I got from Wikimedia Commons. Yeah. So this is a slide just like going through the basic definition of a zine anyways. It's pronounced as if it was the end of the word magazine in English. It's usually a self-published or published by a small independent publisher. It's a non-commercial production, or printed in small numbers, circulating only through specific networks. Yeah. And then they tend to have niche audiences, and they provide a vehicle for ideas, expression, and art. So, like, what's so great about them that I want to talk about zines and tell you to make one and try them, and like, just what's so great about them? They just look like little booklets. So, like, a lot of the times it's like the zines have a lot of freedom. You can make them as big or as small as you like them. And once you see a lot of pictures of like different zines, you realize that you have the freedom of choosing what size you want, what textures, what papers. They're really easy to make and distribute. And like one of the things when I went to a panel this year to see, like, basically these panelists were talking about their zines. One of them, which was like a editor for a magazines for ace people, and one person who was like the editor for a zine for like sex workers, and they used the word anti-surveillance, which is like you're creating a document, like a zine, that is circulating in your own community, that like you don't need any third party to get involved, and in itself it's kind of like an interesting way to distribute your information. So why make them? So here's some reasons to make them, but there's like there's like a lot of them. The people is very personal. There's like so many zines. There's like personal zines. There's like fan zines. There's like just like political zines, punk zines. There's so many. Or just even teaching people how to make things. So like, yeah, the expression of yourself. Maybe you're like processing an event and you want to record something that you've experienced, like you went on a trip somewhere and you want to tell people about the trip. Is like more interesting than like trying to give them a slideshow. You give them a zine to hold on to. Maybe some tutorials and other information that you have to share with your community. Or maybe there's like some kind of harm that's happening in your community. Like I've seen like a zine that someone had made was talking about like basically about biking in their community, because like biking in the city is kind of like you're fighting against cars, and yeah, that's kind of a major harm that people would like to have addressed, and I thought that zine was pretty interesting. Okay, so I always talked about like mostly the booklet types of zines, but I was thinking about that probably maybe some people would have thought of fandom anthology zines before, because that's the one I mostly see and read about online, which are basically like a group of people get together, usually with a set group of moderators, where they're related to some kind of fandom, like some anime or some game that you like. Usually it's very curated, and there's like it's competitive to get in. You need to basically have a portfolio that shows like you understand color, you understand how to use a computer to make art, or can at least scan it properly, and you can turn into like a free or paid project. And sometimes it comes with merch add-ons to make it like not just a zine. You get like charms and emotes and other things. It can also be kind of expensive. Like maybe there are some cheaper ones that are like digital, but if you're not outside the target country, and even if they're like, you'll get a contributor copy, it's kind of expensive to get your own things if you don't live inside the United States, if the moderators are located in the US. Yeah. So as for my personal experience of like fandom anthology zines, I did moderate one. It was inside a server that was for like 25 plus people who like boys love BL, and it was like a book of like anthology fan fiction and fan art. We didn't end up printing it in the end, but the audience was exactly only the people in the server, and yeah, it was pretty fun. So like yeah, fandom anthology zines are fun too, but that's not the focus of this panel. Also, like if you are interested in getting involved in them, use like your own judgment to see like are the moderators trustworthy, because there have been some cases where fandom anthology zines have gotten really big. It's like in this case was like a Persona 5 fanzine story that came out last year, where the project had $20,000 that was meant for the production of the project, and it was basically embezzled. So yeah. So the next part I'm going to be talking about some like personal experiences with zines. We will go through like a little bit of tutorial. There are a lot of online tools, a lot of tutorials. Zine people are really nice. They make a lot of resources for people how to make your own. But I thought it would be kind of interesting eventually to just basically talk about the ones I've made before. So yeah. Actually, this is a slide about what do you make your zines about. Yeah, just like I previously mentioned, it could be like they're very personal. This could be anything. So if you're like struggling for an idea of what kind of zine do you want to make, maybe just make something that you are interested in. Maybe some game you've played recently that you want to tell people about what your favorite parts were, or something that you've already made and you just collected in a booklet to like share with your friends, or your art community. There's like collages. You can do them without the use of a computer and just make a collage. There's also like a zine idea generator that I found that I linked in the slide. There's also like zine jams. If you search like on the search engine with like zine jams, they're usually on itch.io, and they have a kind of set deadline. If you need some kind of like a deadline to loom over you to get something done, you can try doing those. It could be anything. It could be like that like comic or book or poetry collection that you keep saying that you'll make, but you like never make it because you're like, it's not my magnum opus, it's not the greatest thing I've made, it's not gonna win the Hugo Award or something like that. But you I don't know, you just need to start. Sometimes you just need to start small, or else you'll never get started, and you have the freedom to make it as you like. So here's an example of a zine that we're going to talk about in a bit. It's a zine that I made with my friends. It's called It's a Zine. It has a picture of this cat drawing that's drawn by my friend Rainy Draws on Instagram. And on the cover of it says the next zine topic ordained by divine dictatorship shall be cats. And that's how we decided our zine topic that time, because my friend decided that was what the topic was going to be. Yeah. So in terms of like where we got started with the zines that we were making between my friends and I, we're like not every zine project needs to involve everyone in the internet. So in this case, these are like zines that we made during lockdowns or when we were at home. We called them, like, we named it It's a Zine. You notice that the first cover is a little bit different because we're just like, we just need to make something. And yeah, you should probably never let me name zines. So eventually you just labeled it It's a Zine. So here's a bunch of covers that we've made. They're pretty rudimentary. We made them in Affinity Publisher, which is a program that lets you put text and put pictures together. So everyone just submitted art and we just put it together in a PDF. You can actually download it I think it's linked later in the slides, but yeah, they're just little PDFs that we made that's shared between us, and we just like put it in our Discord server. Yeah, so you like, one of the things that we learned from building these, like making these digital zines, is that there's actually kind of a communication part that's involved with making zines that are not just with paper and photocopying, like especially trying to explain like graphic design terms like resolution and size. There was like actually one part where in our first zine there was someone submitted a mini zine inside of that zine, so we included it, so technically our zine had a zine inside. Yeah, you can actually download it. I linked it. But if you do end up doing like digital zines, there's lots of ways to like distribute it if you like. You can put it in Google Drive and share it, Discord. You have a NeoCity site or Dropbox. I'm personally using a GitHub account, which is a little bit more advanced. But basically, I have a website. It has space on it. I put the PDF up, and then you can download it. Downsides, it's a little digital, but it is easy to make. Like during lockdowns, it makes sense because you don't have to go to your friend's place to like hand them a zine. So we just did everything and throw it into a word processor. If you have like access to anything like Google Slides or something, you can do this too. You don't even need a program that like I mentioned, you use Affinity Publisher. You don't even need that. You just need something to put the text slides in, which you can use Google Slides. I actually have an example screenshot later that shows you how I use Google Slides. So, like I talked a little bit about the slide, like kind of the zines and programs that we use, but you don't actually need that many materials. Like at the bare minimum, to make your zine, you just need paper, like a writing or drawing utensil, and maybe scissors, or craft knife. So here's an example of a zine I put together in like an hour, using one sheet of paper. You just fold it into like these little booklets, and it eventually becomes a like a little book that you can photocopy, or you could just keep it for yourself. You can see that it's about anime that I'm looking forward to this year, and I'm going to show you a video of what it looks like when you flip through it. And there's like the anime that I'm looking forward to: Buchikiri, Brave Bavern, Apothecary Diaries. I don't know if these anime are coming out this year, but Yakuza Fiancé, Windbreaker, and the Detective Conan 30th anniversary featuring Kid. And yeah, so you got a sneak preview of like what the next zine that I was going to show off, which was like a mini zine. These are still the same type of zines that we just saw, where it's made with a single sheet of paper, but they're like formatting is a little bit. One of them is like art that I've created that was previously in some other zine that my friends and I made, which was the cat zine that you've seen previously, but I drew enough drawings that I decided, it's enough pages to make a mini zine. So in this case, you can see this picture. It's literally one sheet of paper. You can make a little booklet. And in the back, there is like a secondary zine that I'll talk about in a bit that's actually doesn't have artwork in it, but yeah. So you can see it's one sheet of paper. You don't have to put something on the back, but I decided to put that in there. So if you ever decide to open it, you would get a surprise poster on the back. So this one's using a template, made with a template in Affinity Publisher. And then once you cut it up and you staple it, this one requires a staple, this one did not. You can actually make a little booklet. And yeah. So this second manifesto one uses a staple, and the art is basically screenshots from the anime and writing that I did for like basically a meta essay that I created to explain the show. Here's like another flip through of it. That's a little bit more close up. Notice that it doesn't have any artwork in it. It's just like found art that relates to the show that I'm talking about. It's a little rough because this is the first version I made. I just corrected the mistakes with the pen. You can see like image songs and pictures that I like. He had mentioned before using Affinity Zine template with Meta Paradox. I've linked it from the HIL. So this one's a little bit more complex. It requires like using a program to do it, so the learning curve is a little bit higher. But you could still do this, like you mentioned with the picture where I used the marker and the paper directly. You could just create it on paper directly. So why did I make the zine? I just made it because I felt like it. I like wrote it because it's basically an essay. It's written in the style of like the ship manifesto that people used to write before. I'm pretty sure people still write these kinds of things, but it just talks about like what you like about a pairing, that you enjoy. It's like just a made up thing that you enjoy with like stories or reasons or pictures that you enjoy. So yeah, so I made one of these. I just have a lot of feelings about them, and just like, this is a good size. You can print it, cut, staple, and then you can give it away. Yeah, I mean, it could technically be like, you know, a banger social media thread or something, but yeah, I thought the zine was nice. I like it. I really enjoy it. So you're just flipping through it. I put some text in it. So one of the dangers about making the zine is that the text might be too small to read, but I need to fit everything, so yeah. I don't know if I'll put it online eventually, but we'll see. So the next zine I wanted to talk about was this fanzine that I made. You can actually also download this one for free. So this is kind of like the freedom of expression type thing. So a lot of times people think of like fanzines as like fan art or comics, or it could be any of those things. So this one I wasn't sure what to write. I kind of had an idea of like what I wanted to write. It was like for a server zine. It was for that server zine I was modding before. But then I was kind of realized it was getting out of control in terms of page count, and it wasn't a comic. So I decided to make my own zine. And in this case, I used fan art that I drew and lyrics from this opera by George Bizet. There's an aria from it called Habanera. Yeah, and I thought it was kind of appropriate because the story was about a matador, and in this anime, there is kind of a matador theme going on in there. So yeah. So here's like one of the ways you could make your zine that I thought would be to show you that it doesn't require like any kind of fancy program to do this. Like, this is a template that I downloaded from online that uses a Google Slides. Google Slides, it tells you how many pages it is, and then you just put your pages in order, and then from there you can just export the PDF and print it out. So this is the like version 1 of the zine that I made. It's 8 pages, and it's made in Google Slides, which is free if you have a Gmail account. As for like where you want to print, you can like print anywhere you need to. So some people, you might go to a print shop, but that's just like one more step. And sometimes maybe you want to make something that doesn't involve a third party reading your zine while you're making it. But in this case, I printed it at the library. It's pretty cheap, like 15 cents a copy. And yeah, it's not one of the charms about zines is that they're not perfect. And in this case, you can see like the printout is a little bit streaky. The center fold is a little bit off. So that's one of the things you have to account for if you're making your zine, is that it's not going to be perfect and not going to be exact. So you have to like leave room for those kinds of errors to occur, or be okay with them. So yeah, this is the first version of the zine that I made. And it was like tied together with an elastic. I didn't even have a stapler. Like, I think I eventually learned that you're not supposed to use elastics because elastics deteriorate over time. Like, staples can rust and stuff, because I've seen some really old zines before, and the staples are like a little bit rusty, but the damage is not that great to the paper, so it's not too big of a concern. So even more of it. You notice that this zine is actually full bleed, meaning all the colors reach to the edge of the paper. That's because I cut it. So it's like kind of an unusual size. Yeah. Eventually, I did make this zine into like a nicer one where I actually added color and I printed it out. So this one, I went to like a I guess people call it like a office supply store. I went to Staples and I had to upload it, and then I sent it to the print place, and then you have to talk to somebody and they give you your files. And then I had to go home and cut all these and staple these. Yeah. So like with the experimentation, they printed the papers out, so that was like one other party who saw my files and stuff like that, and then I personally cut and printed it, because the more services you ask for at those places, they'll charge you money for it. Depends on your like where you think your time is worth, but like the do-it-yourself kind of style, you can save time or save money in that way. So you see, like, this is like the full bleed. That's when you run into errors. Like, you have to leave room for printing discrepancies. You can see it's like slightly off from both sides. So if you want the colors to like actually go to the edge, you need to leave room in your art to do that. So I'm going to show you the video that flips through the version 1 that I made. It's actually not the correct size. It's actually bigger than it's supposed to be. But you can see that there's like little areas in how where the edges are. I actually messed up printing because you're supposed to print on like certain edges when you flip the paper over. I just glued them together. So like I'm okay with this. Because this is my personal copy, but like I compensated for it by gluing two copies together. So yeah, here's the version 2 that I made. I messed up the stapling there, so I just pulled it out and did it again. And it turned out okay. Here's another one that I created recently, and I printed it out with the printer. I used the self-serve this time at Staples instead of the print shop. So it's like you go there and then you upload your file, and then you have to basically have to use a card to say that they can pre-charge you a certain amount, and then you can print it. And then it's a little bit better because you don't have to get a third party involved to see what you're printing. So in this case, I made a little booklet using pages that of art that I created last October of like basically original characters and suits, because I felt like those are the combination I wanted to draw, and I finished 31 drawings. So that was like actually a pretty good number, because you could actually fit 32 pages in multiples of 4. So I actually had to learn how to make a booklet in this case, because I thought, oh, I could just make a PDF with all the pages in order, and I could just take my file to the printer and just print it there. But it turns out you need to think about the booklet printing aspect, which I'll show you in a later slide to explain what that means, because it's like because you're folding the pages in half and flipping them over, there's kind of like an order you need to think about, aside from just being like, oh, I thought the program could do it for me. There are some programs that could do it for you, but in this case I hadn't thought that through. And yeah, I made one of the things about making zines is I definitely do test pages first. Don't just print everything at once before you do it. So I did make test pages, and I realized my mistake, and then I immediately stopped and just redid the file again. Here's another fanzine that I made. It's actually full color, and this one I did actually go to a print shop that's local here. It's in full color. It's basically 8.5 by 11, like USA letter sheet paper folded in half. The paper was folded by the machine and stapled by the machine. I only made a small number of copies, so they were either gifted, traded, or donated to like a local zine library. And it's collecting art that I made from 2001 to 2003 of this pairing. So like that's like talking about the anti-surveillance part. It's like if you're concerned about having like a third party or a print shop like look at what you're printing, maybe it's just for you, and maybe it's just for your friend. Like you have something personal, like a personal zine that you don't need so many people to see. You just need you and your 5 friends to see. Maybe do the self-serve instead. Yeah. So this one had like a unusual size because I think the first batch of them that I made, the print shop asked me if I wanted to cut the edges off with a paper cutter. It's like a guillotine. It's a big knife. You can cut lots of sheets of paper at the same time. So the first time around, I cut the edges off, but I think with the later ones, I might not and just leave them. It's not detrimental. Like having things full bleed is not required. These are not high-end books. They're just for like a small number of people, and they're a little bit more charming that way, in my opinion. So here's an example of using Affinity Publisher and how I made that zine by like putting the files together that I've created. I didn't account for like all these files being printed in the past, so in the future I'm probably going to draw everything at a higher resolution so that if I did want to print them, they would come out a little bit better. Yeah, it's better to scale down than to scale up. You can't really scale up that well in printing. But if you do everything like on the paper directly at the exact size, then you wouldn't have to worry about this. So here's some flip through pages that I created. It's a little bit imperfect. So you can see there's like a little bit of color banding through the middle of this drawing. Yeah. For the price I paid for these books, these are not professional printing. Like if you're gonna be selling these kinds of things, maybe it'll be a different story, but yeah, these are just for me. So here's another zine that I made. It was a little bit more ambitious. It had more pages. I decided to go with coil binding. I think they were like getting to the edge of what would be considered a zine in this case, because we're doing full color now, we're doing coil binding, going to the print shop. Drifted a little bit further away from the DIY, but I just wanted to show that these are some things that you could do. So some of the art that I created, like I mentioned about like low resolution versus high resolution, just something to think about. A lot of these drawings don't work out in black and white that well without like extensive editing, which is kind of the reason why I ended up doing full color. So I'm going to show you the last video. It's a flip through. You can actually get the digital version of this because of the sheer number of drawings, I decided to be like a little bit more better to share it in the PDF format, so you can like print. You can't really print it, but you can see it together, all the work together. So we've run through all these zines that I've created, and one of the common threads is there's like two ends of the spectrum. There's like the more do-it-yourself end of the spectrum, and then there's I went to the print shop and the print shop helped me out to make the zine. It depends on like how you want to balance it out, how many people you want involved in your process, what kind of zine you want to make. But like any of the tools I mentioned, they're not required. Like none of them are required. Like at the basic minimum, maybe you need paper, maybe a marker, and a pair of scissors, and then you need the photocopier. But like these are just suggestions. So yeah. So I linked the instructions on how to make a one-page zine. Like you just need to cut the paper and fold it, and you have a zine. And there's like a lot of like word processing tools that you can use to output the PDF. So if you have something like Outlook or something like that, you can get Microsoft Word for free. If you have Gmail, there's Google Slides. There's an electric zine maker. So just before you click on the website, just know that there's like an animation on the website. The design is like kind of interesting, but it reminds me of oikaki. If you know from before, where you kind of like very rudimentary way to make a zine, but you can make it in this program. It's pretty easy. And if you want to edit some photos, there's like things like web-based Photoshop type thing like Photopea. So like if you want to be a little bit more intermediate, or you already know how to use publishing programs, there's Affinity Publisher and Adobe InDesign. But just note that they cost money. They're a little bit more precise if there's something specific that you want to do that can't be done with like just paper and pen, or maybe your handwriting is not that great, but just know that the learning curve is a little bit higher. Yeah, so some of the tips that I mentioned before: making your art, making it bigger or a larger resolution than what you think you need. PDFs are a pretty common file format for exporting and printing. They're pretty exact. So if you're planning on exporting the file, just like maybe do a little bit of research. A lot of the DIY parts is like you still have to do a little bit of research to figure out how to put it together. But yeah, definitely test your prototypes, and it doesn't need to be perfect. That's one of the things that I hope that you took away from all my little projects about making version 1 and version 2, is that part of the charms of zines is that they're like imperfect. They're a little bit lo-fi. They're very like you made it, and very human hand and imprecise with the printing process. But yeah. Okay, so this page, I was planning on like putting a whole bunch of text on here to explain friendship printing forms, but I honestly realized that like a lot of them you will eventually like kind of learn them a little bit, but they're not that useful at this moment. If you're like a beginner, if you're a little bit more advanced, maybe you should look into it. Like bleed, there's like print resolution. Usually you want to do like 300 dpi and above if you're making it digitally. Once again, if you do it directly on paper and photocopy directly there, you don't need to worry about this. There's like gutter and margins. CMYK versus RGB. If you make your zines in black and white, you don't need to worry about this too much, but if you're doing it in color, most of the time printing is done in CMYK. So I'm just saying that doing the one-page zines with no staples is like a great way to start. You don't need to worry about these. So the next part would be like, I wanted to talk about the booklet printing that I talked about before. So there was the logs book that I created. That one I didn't have to worry about it because I already counted for how many pages that were done in multiples of 4, and then the print shop handled it for me. But for like the photocopy zines that I was making myself, and I wanted to photocopy or print the pages myself, you need to like think about which pages are together. So in this case, you can see in the photo is that there's like a page 28 and page 1 are on the same sheet of paper, and page 2 and page 26 are on the same on the same piece of paper. This is how you're probably going to have to do it if you want to make your own photocopy zines with like 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. You need to figure out which side is which. But if you have like something Adobe Acrobat on a desktop machine, I tried this on an iPad and it didn't really work the way I expected, so I think it needs to be a desktop. And you basically need to take your PDF with all the pages that you put together and like do the printing with the booklet function, and it will do the math for you. And then you can, if you save it to PDF, your PDF will be in the correct layout format. There's like a complicated math formula way to do it, but I don't really understand it. So here's me making the prototypes and doing the layout myself that I'm planning to do in Microsoft Publisher. Not Publisher, Affinity Publisher. Okay. So like sometimes, like I mentioned about mistakes happen when the printing is not exact. Sometimes it's all like a little bit of problem solving. You need to do a little bit of problem solving. So in this case, I made this mini zine that you thought would be like really simple, right? I'll just put some pictures of cats on a page and then I'll just print it out and it'll be fine. But you can see on this photo, there's all these like black boxes around these pictures. And I was like, I don't understand what happened. So I went to the search engine that I use and I punched in the words for the program, which is Affinity. And I was like, okay, it came out in the PDF. It looked fine in the PDF. So I'm going to like look at what this black box is and I try to like figure out from these programs. I think I eventually figured out that you need to put like a white background on all the masters for your like Affinity output files, and also it has to do with which PDF program you exported or read from. So yeah, it's weird. Sometimes it's just weird. It could be some edge case. Maybe you can't figure it out. But I think usually if you follow someone's tutorial and like, yeah, it's just a mystery. It's like playing detective. Yeah, so I talked a bit about where you get your zines made. I mentioned like print shops. You can go to self-serve places like Staples, maybe your library or your school, or don't want to encourage you to do this, but you could do it at work or a convenience store. Yeah, there's lots of places. So in this photos, I was doing this at Staples. The pages are coming out and you can print it, and then you can print as many copies as you like. I think it's like 16 cents at Staples, which is like only slightly more expensive than doing it at the library, but I personally prefer the library. But the library is down here, so I couldn't do it at the library. I would prefer to. Alright, so now you've made all your zines. What do you do with them? Like, maybe there's like a group of people that you're sharing these zines with, like your community. Like you have a specific hobby that you want to tell people about. Oh, you have like a cosplay technique that was in your costume and people are always asking you about it, and you can make a zine to explain it to them that you can take and share and photocopy. So yeah, you can read them yourself. If they're for yourself, you can gift them to your friends. You can trade them. I actually found this cool video by Brady X Bray about how to do trading with people internationally. So there's like some discords I'm in where people are posting about, hey, I'm okay with trading these zines. And that video goes through like basically some basic ideas of how not to be annoying about it, how to set up, how to prep. You just have to be really patient. And obviously one of the major things about trading with strangers online is that you have to do it safely. Like if you have any doubts, you could just not do it or share with like a digital copy if that you're comfortable with that kind of thing. But yeah, that video is pretty good. I actually made a page on my blog that goes through like what kind of things I want to trade for, but I forgot to use it, even though the one time I asked someone for a trade. So yeah, it's a good video. Check it out. You can donate it to places like zine libraries. I think I listed this links to a list of zine libraries in a whole bunch of different countries, not just here in Canada. So you can, I think there's some of them have like mailing addresses that you can mail to if you can't get to them physically, or you can go to one if you're close to one, or you can start one. There's actually like resources for starting zine libraries for people to share in your community to see what interests there are. There's like a lot of them. A lot of people think of like fanzines in terms of anime and games and stuff like that, but since I've been to like the Toronto zine library, there's like a lot of like videos and movies, bands, just like people are fans of lots of things, not just anime, manga, which is like my little bubble. So the last thing you could do is like you can probably sell them. I'm not too familiar with these things, but there's like Etsy, Big Cartel. You go to cons. There's like zine fairs. There's like a zine vending machine that I found on Instagram that's in Hamilton. Or you can do consignment. There's like hopefully there's some like local bookstores. Maybe they have like a little shelf that they do consignment for zines that people have made, and they sell it for you. Yeah, just like take a look around in your neighborhood and see what's good. So here's some photos. Here's a photo of a zine habanera that I donated to the Toronto Zine Library. Actually, like I dropped them off, and then the week after, one of the volunteers was like, "Oh, we put your zine in the catalog," and they showed me the zine on the spinner. So it's kind of funny to see like this BL zine that I made on the shelf with these like, punk zines. but punk is very entwined with zine culture. Like it talked about the marginalized of the marginalized and like fringes of society, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. I never thought of it that way, but I felt kind of be like, oh, hopefully someone will find my zine and enjoy it, even though it's very small. Yeah, and there's a poster for showing you where the zine library is that I took. I thought this poster was pretty cool. When I donated the zine, it went into their catalog. You can actually find it in their look in most zine libraries. They probably have some kind of catalog, so you can look through what kind of zines you're interested in. I think they were talking about possibly having a lending system in the future, but right now you have to go to the physical location to borrow the zines. So it's like categorized with like what kind of zine. It's a fanzine with like an anime. It came out in 2002. It's quarter size. It's like a fiction zine. Yep. So the next few slides I think are basically just some photos I've taken. I thought it would be kind of interesting to be like, what is the Z community other than online? Like I've been in some discords. If you look on itch.io and there's like zine like jams and stuff like that people put together, they're usually tied to a Discord where people chat and stuff, or you can ask for help if you're stuck on something. They're pretty nice. So here's some like photos I thought people would be interested in, because they're like local things that like there's like a Canzine that happened last year at the community center. This one was like there was like you had to apply to get in because there was limited spots, but that was fun. There's some zines about zines from the Toronto Zine Library that I took some photos of with some resources. There's like a book I actually looked at a bookstore called like Stolen Sharpie Revolution. That's like it had some like US specific resources for like zines and distributing it and making it, but maybe there's like some local ones that you know of or you have information about. You can make a zine about that to share with people in your community. These are photos from 2002 when I went to Zine Dream, because Zine Dream went on hiatus last year. So there's like a little sign for the event that was held at an art gallery nearby. And then there's like some zines that me and my friends, we were enjoying at a coffee shop afterwards. There's like a little bit of on the last photo, there's a picture of a risograph overprint swatch. So zines could be like really rudimentary, like mini zines, like with a single sheet of paper that you photocopied, but they can get up there in terms of people like do risograph printing that you need a special printer to do. They're really nice, but they're not required. I think some people enjoy risograph, and I enjoy risograph, but not everything needs to be risograph. But you can, maybe if you're interested, you can try it out. It's a different type of printing. Maybe you just want to do like a riso cover or something like that. Yeah, maybe eventually. Here's a photo of the Zine Dream inside the art gallery during 2002. People looking at zines. I think that same year there was also Canzine that was held at the Toronto Reference Library. That one was like way bigger than the one last year, I think. Because last year's one was held at a community center. It was much smaller, but this one was much larger. There was like a panel on how to run a charity collab zine. It was actually like an 18+ zine, so we were kind of asking questions. They'll be like, "Where do you print your stuff?" But yeah, that's not the focus of this panel. So this is like fun fanzine someone made for Animal Crossing with these like these characters' faces from Animal Crossing. Here's like a shot from above in the trial reference library. This is only part of the zine festival. There were some side rooms and stuff. But yeah, this is just one photo. And some, like you can see from this photo, there's a pile of zines that I bought. There's like a lot of different sizes and shapes. So there's a very small one for like what is a zine, and then there's full color. There's also like a comics book that's like in on this yellow paper that's really nice with this green text. There's also full color covers, and then there's like newsprint paper, and then there's also like the usual like paper photocopy and folded in half type booklets. Yeah, could be any size, any shape you like. So this is the last slide I have. In summary, zines are a great way to express yourself. They're simple to start, and they're a good way to connect with others in your community. And you should make zines. And here's like a picture I took of all the zines I've made. I was actually kind of surprised I made so many. I don't think it includes everything, but it's like a decent pile. I'm planning on making another one sometime soon. I'm still working on it, but yeah, hopefully you'll be inspired to make a zine.
Oh, someone mentioned Kanzine. Yeah, Kanzine is happening. It happens twice a year. The spring one is coming up the application's open next week. It's going to be online, so I think the spring online one is that you mail their zines to them and they mail all the zines out, and then the fall Kanzine is like it was in 2 locations, but one of them is in Toronto and that one is in person. So last year it was in the Cecil Community Center. It was like way smaller than the Toronto Reference Library one, but that one's like in person, which is kind of nice if you want to meet other people who are other zinesters. Yeah, that's the word. If I remember that the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, like TCAF, they used to have like a zine terrace that was like attached to it, but I don't think I saw it last year. I mean, I would be kind of curious if they did have it again. Any other question? Let me know. I think on the resources slide that I linked in the Discord, there's a contact form. So if you have any questions that require a long form answer, it will respond by email. Okay. It says Kira asks, how do you compile a bunch of pics into PDFs for sending people your zines? Is it like doing like a layout to make a PDF? Bunch of pics into PDFs for sending people your zines. In that case, I would probably, if you're just loading photos, I would use like Google Slides or Affinity Publisher, where you put you can actually even do it by I think even Windows has a way for you to make a PDF out of like a bunch of files. But if you want to make it consistent, or if you want to resize stuff like crop them and stuff, you can do like rudimentary cropping in Google Slides and then download it as a PDF if you're making a digital one. If it's a print one, you might need to think a little bit harder about making the booklet stuff I mentioned before. For like sending people, you could use like Dropbox or I think Discord you used to be able to like basically put a link out into the wild with Discord PDFs that are in your server, but they killed that off. So like a Google Drive, any place you can host them. I've seen people like talk about like hosting their own websites. I'm kind of interested in indie web stuff, like even using there's a site called NeoCities where you have your own site. Like I have my site where my slides are. That's basically it's just some space that I have that was free, and then it's just hosting my PDFs there and it's being served to you from that like hosting space. But definitely read the like guidelines about your content, because like some hosts would be like depending on what you're sharing, they might have objections to it. Yeah, which is why some people choose to use like itch.io. If you're like, oh, this is like mature content, then yeah, might have to think a little bit harder about it. Yeah, yeah. I know, like when you see here NeoCities, you're like, yes, it is named after GeoCities, but NeoCities is like a place you can make a free website. It's very very simple to use if you know how to like, even if you download like a simple HTML template and you just upload it, you will have an instant web page. Which is like, yeah, it's really great. You may have your own websites. Guys, make web rings. Let's make web rings again. Especially with like the degradation of search engines. and all that jazz. Indie web is great. Zines are great.
How did you start out into getting into Vines? Zines. Zines. Zines.
Oh, oh. I think I found some actually found some zines I made when we were like teenagers. Little booklets we made with all our comics and stuff. But like I basically forgot about them until I started getting into this anime I watched that called Skate the Infinity, which two of the characters appeared a lot on my slides. And then I got really interested in the two characters and like pairing and shipping. And then there was like a fandom zine. It was run by really, really nice people. Um, and I applied to it and I got in. So that was like my first like fandom anthology. So that one was digital only. But after that, I was like, I want more of these kinds of zines. But I was like, what if I just made them myself? So like that kind of led to like all those like quarantine zines I made with my friends. They all had themes on them, like they were like cat theme or like building theme or monster hunter, like monster theme. But essentially, all of them turned into like Skate the Infinity zines because whatever I submitted was that theme combined with my two favorite characters. So like that was my start, just like putting all the files together in PDF. Like, it was like a good lesson in like trying to communicate with people about print resolution because um yeah, it's like there's like a lot of steps to making those kinds of like digital ones if you want to sell them. You want them to be like a good resolution, you be the correct size. But when it's just your friends, you can be like, okay, the resolution isn't quite right. We'll just lower the resolution of all these files and make them smaller and make them not make them humongous for people to download. Yeah, I started making more of them. I wanted to make a comic book like those doujinshi that people make with their favorite characters and stuff, and I'm working up to it. Just making the smaller ones really builds your confidence. Has anyone ever run into copyright issues with zines? Um, don't have an answer for that. Like all these like unofficial fandom zines, they definitely exist and they're using like unofficial IP. Like I'm probably maybe I've heard of like maybe Disney or those kinds of like Nintendo, or if you get too big that they'll notice you. But like even when I was like writing, I'm working on like an information zine that's about like Fujoshi and BL shipping, and I was like, do I need to cite all the things I'm like researching? Like I'm reading a scientific paper, but just like reading around, it's like we're not making scientific papers and we're not making giant print runs that I don't think in. Yeah. Like a lot of the scenes I've seen are just like they use found artwork, like pictures of Nick Cage and stuff. But it seems to be I don't have an answer for you about that. But a lot of the zines are made with collage art, and it's kind of like they're so small that yeah. What's collage art? Well, like collage art is like when you combine a bunch of art together. It sometimes all the art is like overlapping. It might be a combination of random things or certain things in a theme. Usually you do it like physically, like you open a newspaper, you cut out all the things you like, and then you like stick it together on one sheet of paper, and then you can photocopy that directly. And if you did it digitally, that would involve more steps. You could do it that way, but I guess a lot of people like doing the fun part, which is like glue sticks, scissors, cutting, combining found art. If you want to make your zine too, you could also make it with a collage. If you're like cutting out of your sketchbook or something.
All right. Any last questions? Chat. Thank you very much, Kai. That, like I said, that was a great panel. Very informative.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you very much.